Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I'm Marcus Spar, and just rapid fire here. Please give this podcast a rating and a review, like and subscribe, send in questions. There's plenty of ways that you can get in touch with me. Just take a look at the description below. I was really struggling today. Had some time, and it's like, I do need to sit down and record a podcast. And I was really struggling to find the motivation to do so. And not only have there been some challenging mental health struggles here in this house, and still all of the demands being made with just the family, keeping the household running, and trying to prioritize time with our friends. I was really struggling today. And this wasn't even what I wanted to talk about today. I was once again going to find some example of a piece of media where it's like, these are 10 things that I've learned about this thing, and I just could not find the motivation. I really could not find the motivation to come up with anything for that. And instead, I went back to a conversation that Libby and I had with our friend Katie yesterday. Things haven't exactly been the greatest over here. I had my first ever root canal, and I have one tooth now that is earned the title of the $2,000 tooth, at least. And thankfully we've had insurance that's been able to help with this, but $2,000 is not a small chunk of change, especially for this house. We're not one of the richest people out there where it's like, a couple $1 million, oh, that's nothing to really sweat over. And with some of the financial plans that Libby and I have, and the number of things this year that have really prevented us from being able to make much progress towards those financial goals, we found ourselves having a very similar conversation, or not similar, a repeated conversation. Something that in the 15 years that Libby and I have been married, this has probably been the most recurring conversation. And it has to do around finances, our future, and whether or not we are hitting these milestones or objectives that we've set for ourselves. And this is also one of the biggest rubs that Libby and I have. I am very much an in the present kind of person, and Libby's absolutely a look to the future kind of person. So she can really fret about what things look like in terms of finances and whether or not we're hitting these goals, and I'm like, what are we doing to get through today? How are we going to meet our needs today and just take care of ourselves? This is potentially a flaw in both of us, and yet we somehow make it work. A flaw in that I'm not very forward thinking, and a flaw for Libby that she can focus so much on the future that it takes away from her enjoyment in the present. And we had a really good conversation just yesterday with our friend Katie. Shout out to Katie Shobe, friend of the podcast. And she said something very profound yesterday that, I'll admit, it's something that I really wanted to say when we were just helping Libby with essentially a nervous breakdown that she was having. And yet, I think Katie was in a much more privileged position to be able to say what she said. And while Libby was kind of explaining what she was struggling with, because it wasn't just these financial woes, it was also just a lot of overstimulation. And it all just culminated into this, I can't take this anymore. And thankfully, Libby already had this scheduled time to go to coffee with Katie, and she invited me to join along. And we were able to support her and just kind of connect with our community, with our family. And Katie made this observation as Libby was explaining her hopes and desires, her dreams really, to pay off this house, to have a larger sum of money in our savings account, and to just pursue this debt-free lifestyle that she really wants us to have. And whenever we have these unexpected medical bills like a $900 root canal, it's something that can really disagree with Libby, if we put it nicely. And she gets frustrated. Naturally, she gets frustrated. I totally get it. And Katie just was letting Libby speak. And then she just goes, it sounds like you're putting a lot on yourself. It's not the expectations that others are putting on you. It's that you're expecting a lot of yourself. And she even went on to say it's okay to have these goals, and it's okay if they need to be pushed back. We don't want them to constantly be pushed back, but it's okay for them to be adjusted as needed, depending on what's happening in the present. And that really struck a chord with Libby and a lot of what she was wrestling with. And just absolute kudos to Katie for recognizing that. It's something that I think a lot of us really struggle with, just expecting too much of ourselves. Last year, I released an episode on just adjusting your expectations, and this very much plays into this same topic. Are you setting up expectations that are so high that you're setting yourself up for failure? I certainly do. I do all the time. It drives me nuts because I am expecting mastery in my life with things that I'm not a master at. It is one of the greatest sources of frustration for me, even in my hobbies. I am more, say, focused on trying to be good at something instead of allowing myself to learn and grow. Talking about as a podcaster, as a coach, as a writer, as an artist, as a gamer, as a friend, in all of the aspects of myself. As a son, as a husband, as a brother, I'm expecting mastery. And I'm not a master. I'll be the first to admit I am not a master. I'm really not a master at anything. And that's okay, because that means there's plenty of space for me to grow. And there are things that and there are expectations that I will set for myself where just the smallest amount of failure, the slightest mistake, anything really, it can be devastating. And it can slow down my progress and my growth. And so since this is so fresh on my mind, I want to pose the same question to you. Are you setting yourself up for failure? Are you setting yourself up to let yourself down? Are you setting the goal so high that there is a greater chance that you are going to not succeed than actually reaching it? And it is great to have those goals that do stretch you. However, as I guess this was very early on in this podcast history, I want to focus more on the progress that I'm making instead of whether or not I'm doing everything perfectly. And ironically, this is something that I can give so much easier to others than I can give to myself. I innately expect perfection of myself, and yet if I'm talking with a client and they have gone back into a maladaptive coping mechanism, I don't berate them. I don't judge them. I don't tell them they should have done better because they didn't do it perfectly. We look at the progress that they're making. And for myself, I can't seem to do that. And it's frustrating. I guess to a certain degree, it really does boil down to just that understanding that we are our own worst critics. We expect so much out of ourselves that it's easy for us to fail ourselves, or feel that we fail those around us. And I'm reminded of one of the lessons that I learned years ago on my own journey is, if you are struggling with something and you are just really tearing yourself up over what you said, what you did, that you're not hitting these goals, that you seem to be failing in everything that you're trying to do, and you're just not really being kind to yourself, then what would you say to a friend who is going through the same situation? What if you were talking with a friend who had just lost a job? What would you say to a friend who has a relationship that's on the rocks, had a falling out with a friend, has overbearing family members, an overbearing boss? What would you say to someone that isn't you, someone that you love and you care about, who is struggling with the same experiences, with the same inability to meet these expectations? And maybe this is just my bias showing through here. However, I really do believe that for most of us, for you, my friend, that if you had a friend who was going through what you're going through, you would probably extend a lot of grace and compassion for them. You would encourage them. You would support them. You'd pick them up. You'd help however it is that you could. And yet, if you're like me, it's really hard to do that for ourselves. I guess one of the things that's really standing out to me here is maybe don't be so critical of yourself. Allow yourself to learn, allow yourself to grow, allow yourself to make mistakes. In a lot of ways, the best ways that we learn actually come from the school of hard knocks. They come from us making mistakes. They come through us having to learn from these mistakes that we make. And so I want you to think of just one thing. Just one thing. One goal that you're trying to achieve. For me, it's my writing. It's getting a book published. Am I setting myself up to fail? Am I setting the expectations so high that I cannot achieve them? In a lot of cases, yeah. I'm expecting to sit down and write the first draft and have that become my magnum opus, have it be the best thing that it could possibly be, and that everyone's going to love it. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to make much progress towards that goal if I'm expecting that. So I am setting myself up to fail. What about you? Is there some kind of goal you're trying to achieve? Maybe it's financial freedom. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a friendship. Maybe there's a coping mechanism that's not working for you anymore. What is the next brave step for you that you might be struggling to take because your expectations are so high that they're unattainable? And if you think about yourself trying to achieve these goals, and if you fail, what would you say to yourself? And if that's what you're saying to yourself, what would you say to a friend who is going through the same thing? Maybe that's what you need to start telling yourself. In terms of my writing, I need to tell myself to just play and have fun with it. I've got so many ideas bouncing around in my head. I'm not really doing much with them. I just need to play. I need to explore. I just need to write. I need to, well, not need to. Again, the whole needing versus wanting, which one are you going to do more? But if this is something that I truly do want to achieve, then it's going to be important for me not to just set myself up to fail at every step that I take. I have this goal. You have your own goals. What can you do to start making those goals and those dreams a reality? And start to set appropriate expectations and allow yourself the space to make mistakes and to learn and grow. That oftentimes makes us so much more well-rounded people. Love on yourself today. And find some way this week that you can just take that one step toward whatever this goal is. That's how all the best heroes do it. I honestly can't think of a single hero off the top of my head who achieved something by just sitting there and waiting for it to happen. They usually had to take those steps. They had to leave their comfort zone. They had to leave the safety and security of what was familiar, what was comfortable. They had to embark on that journey. And pretty much for all of them, they had a lot of help. They had a lot of help along the way from individuals who have already done this journey. For those individuals who have already followed this path and can help and mentor others. If you would like to have that kind of mentor in your life, I would love to see if that's something that I can help you with. Again, in the description down below, there's ways that you can contact me. Send me an email. Set up a free hour-long call so we can just chat and see if we'd be a good fit. While I am trying my best to be the hero in my own story, I would love to see if I can motivate you to do the same. If not, find someone. Find that mentor. Find that friend. Find that ally. Find someone who can help you. And again, check your expectations. See if you are setting unrealistic goals for yourself. It's great to stretch yourself, but let's also be realistic about it too. And until next time, live strong for today.